Could something monumental be lost in the annals of time? Imagine a world where entire cities, previously thriving and shrouded in mystery, mysteriously crumbled and disappeared. Underneath the surface of the earth, sand and myth are unfathomable tales that science has yet to decipher. All of this is real. All of these cities existed. Their legacy has the potential to upend our understanding of our own history. In the dense forests of Central America, gigantic stone pyramids emerge from the foliage, standing as eloquent reminders of a culture that existed long ago. We're on par with the ancient world's best. The Maya flourished here, leaving an enduring legacy in the fields of astronomy, engineering, poetry, and priesthood. Their celestial charts were incredibly accurate. Their symbolic language enshrined history in stone, and their sunlit city-states shone with might. They disappeared without a trace. At the close of the 9th century, their once great towns lay in ruins, their palaces engulfed in vines, and their gods remained silent. Victors could not be determined in any conflict. There isn't any inherent. Tragedy carved its wrath into the rock. The mayor, where is it now? How did an advanced and pervasive society manage to vanish into oblivion? Enshrouded in secrecy, the solution is concealed, only partially deciphered by archaeology, murmured in ancient glyphs. This is the tale of an ascent that reached for the heavens and a descent that lingers on the planet. Located in what is now Guatemala, Belize, Honduras, and El Salvador, the Maya civilization thrived over a huge area that began in southern Mexico. The Maya inhabited in some of the most difficult landscapes, from dry highlands to thick tropical rainforests, which is absolutely astonishing when compared to the Mesopotamians and Egyptians, who lived near large rivers. They were able to build wonderful cities like Tikal, Pelini, Copan, and Chichen Itza because of their extraordinary adaptability. Each one is an architectural and political masterpiece. Spectacular man-made buildings such as underground water tunnels, multi-story palaces, and pyramids with several levels. The Maya built a complex urban system that could thrive in spite of the hostile natural conditions, as seen in their ceremonial plazas. Their visionary culture is on full display in their skillful city planning that blends religious and architectural aspects in a way that is harmonious with the surrounding environment. One that made it through the bush unscathed and even flourished there. An intricate web of religion, politics, and astronomy formed the bedrock of Maya culture. Their deities were intricately linked to the sun, the rain, and mortality in their intricate pantheons. In order to placate the gods and keep cosmic order, kings would execute elaborate rituals, including sacrifices of human beings, as if they were divine intermediaries. Besides being places of worship, Great Pyramids also functioned as platforms for ceremonies and astronomical observatories. The most sophisticated script in pre-Columbian America was their language's written language, which consisted of complex glyphs. Both on bark paper codices and carved into steel are these inscriptions. Provide light on the everyday lives, myths, and astronomy of the Maya. The accuracy with which they predicted solar eclipses and planetary cycles, as well as the length of time that passed, were also remarkable aspects of their calendar system. The political and social organization of Maya society was based on city-states headed by monarchs, with distinct religious, military, and court hierarchies. Not all cities were at peace. Some were always at conflict with one another. Regardless, though, Maya art, architecture, and ceremonial practices revealed a shared religious and cultural worldview despite the region's fragmentation. The abrupt decline of the Maya civilization is just as puzzling as its earlier splendor. Numerous southern cities, which had been pulsating epicenters of politics, religion, and culture, were mysteriously deserted toward the close of the 9th century. Not a single sign of a large-scale invasion has been found. Catastrophe caused by nature. Historians and archaeologists have argued about what happened for decades, and they've come to believe that it was a series of interconnected crises rather than a single event. Extreme and protracted droughts are at the heart of one of the most prominent theories posited to explain the Maya civilization's downfall. Between the 8th and 10th centuries, Central America went through a series of severe dry spells, according to paleoclimate data derived from lake sediments and cave stalactites. Many decades. There were a number of these droughts that persisted for decades and were among the most severe in thousands of years. The agricultural sector, which relied heavily on precipitation from nature, was hit particularly hard by this. The already fragile social fabric was brought to the verge of collapse as a result of crop failures, which caused population reduction, starvation, and illness. The Maya civilization fell apart for several reasons, including environmental disasters, political unrest, and continuous warfare. Civilization. Many violent wars broke out as a result of the separate city-states' constant struggle for dominance. Sites like Agua and Dos Pilas have uncovered artifacts that prove the destruction of numerous cities and the assassination or ouster of the nobility. War was constant, which depleted resources, shook society, and led to kings losing their legitimacy, which made it impossible for them to keep their people safe or provide for their livelihood. Conflict, natural disasters, population booms, and the decline of the Maya civilization was accelerated by environmental degradation. In order to make way for more farms and infrastructure, the mayor had to remove woods to make way for the growing urban population. Soil erosion and agricultural loss were caused by the land's diminished capacity to retain moisture, which was caused by excessive deforestation. Fields that were formerly rich in crops eventually became parched, and harvest yields plummeted. Inadvertently, they made the environment even more unforgiving, which exacerbated the droughts that set off a catastrophic situation. Adding to the turmoil was a loss of faith in the ruling elite and religious structure. As famines and defeats mounted, the traditional belief systems likely began to fracture. The kings once regarded as divine mediators were now seen as powerless. With their legitimacy eroded, political structures disintegrated. Many cities simply stopped recording events, abandoned temples, and left ceremonial centers to the jungle. However, the fall of the classic Maya cities does not mean the end of Maya civilization. Far from it. In the northern regions, particularly in Yucatan, cities like Chichen Itza and Uxmal continue to thrive for several more centuries. Even today, millions of Maya descendants live in Mexico and Central America, preserving elements of their language, customs, and identity. Still, the image of stone temples swallowed by vines, glyphs left unfinished, and bustling metropolises reduced to silence has captivated the imagination of scholars and adventurers for centuries. The suddenness of the classic Maya collapse is so striking that it has become a metaphor for lost wisdom, ecological caution, and the fragility of civilization itself. Was it nature or human error? Was it war or belief? Or was it all of these at once? The Maya left us many answers carved in stone, but also left behind one of the greatest riddles in human history. And perhaps in that mystery, they continue to live on. So, what do you think was the main cause of the Maya civilization's collapse? An uncontrollable natural disaster? Or was it humanity's own actions that led to their downfall? Do you believe history could repeat itself as we now face climate crisis, war, and resource depletion? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective might just offer a whole new way of understanding one of the greatest mysteries in human history. Long before the towering pyramids of Teotihuacan or the celestial calendars of the Maya, a shadowy civilization rose in the sweltering jungles of southern Mexico. Hidden beneath thick canopies and forgotten rivers, themes carved their legacy into stone massive heads with piercing expressions. Mysterious symbols etched into tablets and cities planned with uncanny precision. They were the originators. Revered as the mother culture of Mesoamerica, the Mex laid the groundwork for the empires that would come after. Yet, despite their brilliance, their story ends not with conquest or collapse, but with silence. No great battle, no final monument, just abandonment. What happened to the Alm? How could such an advanced society simply disappear? This is the enigma that haunts archaeologists and historians alike. And in the heart of that mystery lies a deeper truth, not just about a lost civilization, but about how fragile even the greatest cultures can be. Arguably, the most iconic and enduring symbols of mech ingenuity are the colossal stone heads. Carved from basalt boulders weighing up to 40 tons, these sculptures stand over 3 meters tall and bear distinct facial features: broad noses, thick lips, and intense individualized expressions that hint at real individuals, possibly rulers or warriors. What makes these heads even more astounding is the logistics involved. The basalt used for carving them came from the Tucla Mountains, located over 80 kilometers away from the sites of San Lorenzo and Levinta. The transportation of such enormous stones across rivers and jungle terrain without wheels or beasts of burden suggests an incredible degree of organization, labor control, and engineering know-how. Theme did not live in isolated villages. Instead, they built complex urban ceremonial centers that predated other known Mesoamerican cities. San Lorenzo, flourishing around 1200 BCE, was the first of its kind. It featured extensive drainage systems, platforms, plazas, and elite residences, all arranged with intentional urban planning. Later, Levinta rose as the primary ceremonial hub, with a striking pyramid made entirely of earth, the Great Pyramid of Levinta rising above the landscape. These sites were not merely settlements, but cultural and religious focal points that showcase themes, social hierarchy, and cosmological beliefs. Among the earliest known examples of writing in the Americas may belong to the meme. The discovery of the Cascadal block, dated to around 900 BCE, revealed a set of glyphs unlike any other. While the script has not been fully deciphered, it is believed to be a true written language rather than simple iconography. In addition to writing, the Mech may have been early developers of calendar systems and astronomical observation. Their understanding of time cycles and celestial events possibly laid the foundation for the highly developed Maya calendar and cosmology centuries later. Theme worldview was steeped in symbolism and a profound connection between the natural world and the divine. One of the most enduring symbols is the were-jaguar, a creature blending human and jaguar features, often interpreted as a shamanic figure or spiritual intermediary. Olmec art is filled with depictions of hybrid beings, supernatural serpents, and mythological beings associated with fertility, rain, and maize. These motifs would echo across later Mesoamerican civilizations, from the feathered serpent god Quetzalcoatl to the rain deity. Olmec artisans were masters of stonework. Besides the massive heads, they carved intricate jade figurines, ceremonial chelts, and stone altars with remarkable precision. Their tools and materials, obsidian, magnetite, serpentine, and jadeite, came from distant sources, indicating extensive trade networks and an elite class with access to rare goods. They also engineered elaborate water systems, including aqueducts and underground drainage at San Lorenzo. Such feats underscore a high degree of environmental control and civic planning far ahead of its time. Despite their profound influence and clear complexity, Theme's civilization began to decline around 400 BCE. San Lorenzo had already fallen centuries earlier, but by this time, Levinta too was abandoned. There is no clear record of widespread war or invasion. No mass graves, no destroyed temples, just a quiet disappearance. So what happened? Several theories have been proposed. Environmental change. One leading explanation is environmental degradation. Theme Heartland was crisscrossed with rivers and wetlands, making it rich in resources, but vulnerable to flooding and shifts in water systems. There's evidence of rising riverbeds and siltation, which may have led to agricultural collapse or forced communities to migrate. Resource depletion and internal strife. As population centers grew, the Mech may have overexploited their environment, cutting down forests for construction, exhausting soil fertility, or overhunting animals essential to their diet and rituals. This in turn could have led to social tension, class unrest, or weakened elite authority, shifting trade and emerging powers. As neighboring groups began to rise, such as the Zapotecs in Oaxaca and early Maya in the south, the Alm may have lost their economic dominance. Trade routes shifted, cultural power waned, and their central cities no longer held the same strategic importance. Religious transition or political upheaval. Given the deeply theocratic nature of Memic society, the collapse of a religious ideology, whether due to natural disasters, failed rituals, or loss of legitimacy, could have triggered societal collapse. With temples no longer attended and monuments abandoned, a new way of life may have emerged unrecorded in stone. Whatever the cause, the fall of the Memic is one of the most enigmatic collapses in ancient history. Unlike the Maya or Aztec who left behind detailed codices and written chronicles, the Memic left silence, leaving modern archaeologists and historians to piece together their fate from what remains buried beneath the jungle soil. Though they vanished from the map, Themec lived on in spirit. Later civilizations borrowed their religious symbols, calendar concepts, artistic styles, and possibly even writing systems. The Maya, for example, revered jaguars, used similar calendar cycles, and inherited the idea of sacred kingship. Theme may have never built vast empires or left behind libraries of texts, but their influence permeated the very DNA of Mesoamerican culture. They were the spark that lit the fire of one of the most vibrant regions of human civilization. Their disappearance, far from erasing their legacy, has instead deepened the intrigue surrounding them. Why did they fall? Did their descendants carry their stories into new lands? What lessons lie buried within their cities, awaiting the next excavation, the next clue? What do you think? Could a society as advanced as Themec simply vanish without a trace? Or is it that we haven't been asking the right questions or digging deep enough? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Which theory do you find most compelling? Let's uncover the past together. Before Achilles and the Parthenon, there was a forgotten empire of stone and fire. Long before the golden age of Athens, before marble temples crowned the Acropolis, and before Homer's epics echoed through the ages, there existed a civilization shrouded in power, splendor, and mystery. Deep in the hills of southern Greece, beneath layers of myth and time, the Mycenaean civilization rose like a storm, fierce, proud, and unstoppable. These were the first true Greek warriors who stormed Troy, kings who built palaces of stone, and scribes who carved their lives into clay. They ruled not just by sword, but through trade language and architecture that still defies belief. And then, without warning, they disappeared. Entire citadels abandoned. Palaces burned. A complex society vanished, leaving behind only shattered walls and whispered legends. What brought about their sudden fall? Warquakes, a forgotten plague, or something more elusive, more terrifying? This is the story of a civilization that built the foundation of Greek identity only to be consumed by forces we still don't fully understand. This is the Mycenaean enigma. The Mycenaeans emerged after the decline of the earlier Minoan civilization from Crete. Taking their name from the city of Mycenae, one of their strongest citadels, these people established fortified palatial centers across the Peloponnese and central Greece. These city-states, including Chios, Tyran, and Thebes, were governed by warrior kings who wielded both military and religious authority. What set them apart from earlier Aegean peoples was their use of the Greek language written in the Linear B script, the earliest known form of written Greek. This alone confirms the Mycenaeans as the linguistic and cultural ancestors of the classical Greeks, linking myth and history in one ancient thread. To stand in front of the Lion Gate of Mycenae is to witness the power the Mycenaeans sought to display. Built from immense, uncut boulders stacked with uncanny precision, a style now called Cyclopean masonry, these gates once guarded the heart of a citadel. According to later Greeks, only giants could have moved such stones. Inside these walls lay vast complexes of royal halls, storerooms, and temples. The elite dead were buried in monumental tholos tombs like the treasury of Atraus with corbelled roofs rising in perfect domes. These feats of engineering were unparalleled in Europe at the time and reflected both religious devotion and hierarchical authority. At its heart, Mayanean society was militaristic. Palaces doubled as fortresses. Kings were warlords. Their fresco and artifacts show chariots, bronze armor swords, and shields. Archaeological digs and shaft graves have uncovered helmets made from boar tusks, gold funeral masks, and ceremonial daggers, all signifying a culture where honor in battle meant divine favor in death. And it was this warrior culture that inspired the epic poems of Homer. Whether or not Agamemnon and Achilles truly lived, their world was shaped from real Messenian customs: siege, warfare, courtly rivalries, and the spoils of conquest. Far from being insular, the Messenians established extensive trade networks. Their pottery has been discovered across the Levant, Anatolia, Egypt, Cyprus, and even Sicily. They exported olive oil, wine, and luxury goods in exchange for exotic materials such as ivory, gold, and glass. Their ships, though lost to time, must have crisscrossed the Aegean and beyond. Moreover, their interactions with other great powers, particularly Hittites and Egyptians, are recorded in diplomatic texts and trade inventories. In the complex web of late Bronze Age politics, Messene was no minor player. Beneath their warlike exterior, the Messenians maintained an impressive bureaucratic system. This is evident from thousands of linear clay tablets, mostly found in Chios and Nos, which detail rations, tribute, livestock, and weapon stockpiles. The use of syllabic writing, unlike pictographs or ideograms, marked a leap toward literacy and formal record-keeping. This administrative strength enabled the centralization of power and ensured that palaces functioned as economic hubs. In effect, the palace economy controlled production, trade, and distribution, a complex system that would unravel with catastrophic consequences. Around 1200 BC, the Minoan civilization, one of the most brilliant centers of power during the Bronze Age, began to collapse suddenly and mysteriously. The once imposing fortresses were set ablaze. Bustling cities were abandoned. The linear writing system, a sophisticated administrative tool that supported the palace economy, vanished entirely. Within just a few decades, an intricate and highly developed world fell into ruin. Greece entered a long period of obscurity known as the Dark Ages, a time without writing, without palaces, without cities, and without kings. But why did it happen? Unlike the gradual decline of the Roman Empire or the obvious conquest of the Aztecs, the collapse of the Messenians left no clear signs. It is precisely this lack of evidence that has given rise to one of archaeology's greatest mysteries. Modern researchers largely agree that the fall of the Messenians was caused by a combination of multiple factors, a perfect storm that led to complete systemic breakdown. One of the most prominent theories involves the appearance of the sea's mysterious raiders mentioned in Egyptian records who swept through coastal cities across the eastern Mediterranean. It's possible they also attacked Messenian fortresses. At the same time, internal unrest and civil strife are also believed to have played a role, especially as cities like Thebes show signs of destruction from within rather than from foreign invasion. Natural disasters, especially earthquakes and droughts, cannot be overlooked as they were common in the region. A series of successive natural catastrophes may have critically weakened agriculture, leading to famine and instability. Additionally, the collapse of international trade networks, which had sustained the palace-based economy, likely caused the entire economic system, heavily reliant on central control, to implode. Finally, when the palace's centers of administration and record-keeping were destroyed, writing disappeared, and with it, the entire economic and managerial structure unraveled. A civilization once rich in organization, art, warfare, and commerce was silenced and erased from the map with barely a whisper. Despite their disappearance, the Messenians cast a long shadow. When later Greeks wrote of gods, Heroes and wars, they drew on echoes of the Mycenaean past. Even the Parthenon's architects looked back in awe at their Bronze Age forebears. In modern times, their rediscovery in the 19th century by Heinrich Schlien, who uncovered the ruins of Mycenae and Troy, helped legitimize the idea that legends like the Iliad had historical roots. Gold masks, warrior graves, and palace ruins revealed a world far more complex than mere myth. Today we still gaze at their ruins and wonder, how could such a powerful culture fall so completely? Why did they leave so little behind? What secrets are still buried beneath the hills of Greece? The story of the Mycenaean civilization is one of glory and ruin. From their mighty citadels to their sudden extinction, they stand as both inspiration and warning. They remind us how interconnected ancient societies were and how fragile civilizations can be when their foundations crack. We remember them not just for what they built, but for the questions they left behind. So what do you think truly caused the complete collapse of the Mycenaean civilization with its fortified citadels, advanced administrative system, and vast trade networks in just a few decades? Which theory do you lean toward? Natural disasters, war, internal rebellion, or something no one has considered yet? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Who knows? Maybe your perspective could help unlock a new explanation for one of the greatest mysteries in ancient Greek history. Beneath the blazing sun and crimson cliffs of southern Jordan lies a city that seems born from myth rather than history. Petra, the rose-red city half as old as time, rises from the sandstone like a mirage, its temples and tombs carved with divine precision into towering canyon walls. But these breathtaking facades are more than just artistic marvels. They are silent witnesses to a vanished world. The architects of Petra were the Nabotans, a mysterious desert people who defied nature-mastered trade and turned inhospitable wastelands into thriving cultural hubs. They left no sprawling empire, no military conquest, no written chronicles of their rise. And yet, for centuries, they commanded the crossroads of civilizations. And then, just as suddenly, they disappeared. Who were these shadowy builders of stone? How did they rise to such wealth and power in one of the harshest environments on Earth? And what unseen force led their legacy to be swallowed by sand and silence? The story of the Nabotans is not only a journey into ancient ingenuity, but a haunting mystery that still echoes through the canyons of Petra today. The Nabotans first emerged around the 4th century BCE, likely as nomadic Arab tribes who settled in the harsh terrains of the Arabian desert. At first glance, their homeland seemed ill-suited for building an empire. Searing heat, limited rainfall, and rugged mountains made survival difficult. But the Nabotans turned adversity into strength. They quickly established themselves as masters of the terrain, developing complex irrigation systems, hidden trade routes, and fortified cities camouflaged within natural landscapes. Their most iconic creation, Petra, is a testament to their ingenuity. Petra was not merely a city. It was a symbol nestled between sandstone cliffs. Its architecture was more than just practical. It was poetic. Structures like Alcaz, the treasury, and Adair, the monastery, were hewn directly into rock walls, showcasing an architectural blend of Hellenistic grace and native flair. Corinthian columns flanked temple entrances. Intricate carvings depicted celestial motifs, and facades rose like stage curtains out of the canyon. Every crevice of the city whispered of sacred geometry, cultural syncretism, and a civilization that both admired and rivaled the empire surrounding it. But what made the Nabotans truly exceptional was not just what they built, but how they sustained it. Despite being surrounded by arid desert, they mastered water management with astonishing skill. Using a combination of rock-cut channels, underground systems, ceramic piping, and dams, they captured seasonal rains and stored them year-round. This allowed them to transform inhospitable land into a thriving urban center with gardens, markets, and even bathhouse. Water was not only a necessity, it was a source of political power and a symbol of their technological superiority. This control over water, paired with their monopoly over desert trade routes, made the Nabotans immensely wealthy. By the 1st century BC, they dominated the incense and spice trade that linked Arabia, India, and the Mediterranean. Frankincense, myrrh, pepper silk, precious stones all passed through Nabatian hands. Their cities, including Petra and Hegra, modern Madian Sailor in Saudi Arabia, became hubs of cultural and commercial exchange. Inscriptions reveal a society that engaged with Aramaic, Greek, and Latin speakers, and their architecture reflects this cosmopolitanism. Even at the height of their prosperity, with Petra shining as a gem in the desert, the Nabotans remain one of history's great enigmas. Unlike powerful empires such as Rome or Persia, they did not pursue territorial expansion, did not build large standing armies, nor did they leave behind grand declarations carved into stone. Instead, they chose to live in harmony with nature, using intelligence and finesse to control trade rather than force. This very humility makes their disappearance all the more puzzling. There was no war, no rebellion, just a civilization quietly fading into the shadows. In the year 106, CE Nabatea was annexed peacefully by the Roman Empire, becoming the province of Arabia Petrea. There was no fighting, no resistance. The transition was so smooth that some historians believe it resulted from mutual agreement or perhaps from the death of the last Nabatian king Rabel II Sot, who left no strong successor. Another theory suggests that the Romans had gradually infiltrated the Nabatian trade networks and economic relationships, slowly weakening the ruling elite from within. Whatever the cause, this collapse was not loud. It was a disappearance so gentle it's almost unbelievable. Following the annexation, the overland trade routes, the lifeblood of the Nabotans, were gradually replaced by Roman-developed maritime commerce. Without the thriving flow of goods, cities like Petra lost their vitality. The economy shrank and investment in infrastructure, especially the elaborate water systems, waned over time. Powerful earthquakes in the 4th and 6th centuries further devastated the already declining city. As the water stopped flowing, so did life. And in the end, the desert sands silently reclaimed what remained, as if to bury the story of a civilization that once flourished. In brilliance, by the time European explorers stumbled upon Petra in the 19th century, the Nabotans were little more than a legend. The city's facades had survived, but the stories behind them had crumbled. The language once carved on tombs and temples was largely undeciphered, their religion forgotten and their customs buried in silence. Today, scholars continue to piece together the Nabatian puzzle through archaeology, inscriptions, and comparative studies, but vast gaps remain. The mystery deepens when one considers the cultural resilience of the Nabotans. Unlike other desert peoples, they embraced urbanity, art, and science. They innovated, adapted, and thrived without colonizing others. Yet their knowledge systems, unlike Greek or Egyptian counterparts, left no vast libraries or treatises. Their legacy exists more in stone than scrolls. Why did such a clever and adaptable people not preserve their memory more deliberately? Or perhaps they did, and we simply haven't found it yet. In a way, the Nabotans remain true to their desert roots, quiet, elusive, and fiercely self-reliant. Their civilization didn't crash. It faded like a mirage. Petra's grandeur still stands not as a ruin of conquest, but as a memory of subtle brilliance. It whispers of a people who mastered nature, balanced wealth and humility, and vanished without bitterness. The world may have forgotten them, but the rocks remember. And as the desert winds continue to brush the carved walls of Petra, one can't help but wonder what else lies buried beneath the sands. What wisdom did the Nabotans take with them when they chose to disappear? If the Nabatian civilization wasn't conquered through war, did they voluntarily retreat? Or is there something history has yet to reveal? Do you think their disappearance was caused by natural disasters, economic decline, or was it a deliberate choice to merge into a larger empire? Share your thoughts in the comments. because your perspective might just help shed light on one of the greatest mysteries of the ancient world. Buried beneath the waves or locked in the folds of myth, Atlantis remains the greatest riddle of our ancient past. It is not just a story, but a haunting echo that calls to explorers, scholars, and dreamers alike. First told by the Greek philosopher Plato over 230 years ago, the tale of a majestic island empire richer than any known land, more advanced than any ancient civilization, has persisted for millennia without a single confirmed trace. According to Plato's Tus and Critias, Atlantis was located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, what we now call the Strait of Gibraltar. There a mighty people lived in splendor and power until the day everything vanished. In a single night, the sea swallowed them whole. Was it a warning, a memory of something real, or a myth that refuses to die because it touches something deeply human? Our fascination with glory, with hubris, and with what waits beneath the surface of both ocean and mind. Among hundreds of ancient legends, Atlantis stands out not only for the grandeur described by Plato, but also for the profound message it carries. This was no ordinary kingdom. It was a civilization that excelled in every aspect: wealth, sophistication, and advancement far beyond its time. The central city was built in concentric circles interlaced with canals, surrounded by massive walls and structures made of rare metals, especially aurical, a mythical metal said to glow in the light of sunset. Its powerful navy, advanced agriculture, astronomical knowledge, and architectural expertise were believed to surpass all contemporary cultures. Yet this very prosperity became the seed of its downfall. The Atlanteans gradually grew arrogant, strayed from morality, and sought to expand their dominance through war. They even declared war on ancient Athens. And according to Plato, that was the moment the wheel of their demise began to turn. An empire once thought invincible had stepped onto the path of destruction by its own pride. Nothing in the legend of Atlantis is more haunting than the ending described by Plato. In a single day and night of misfortune, Atlantis disappeared beneath the sea. A civilization once radiant and prosperous was reduced to swirling black waves. It is this sudden collapse that lies at the heart of countless debates and mysteries. Was it merely a philosophical allegory or a distorted memory of a real catastrophe that buried an entire empire? Some believe it reflects a massive volcanic eruption like that of Theia, triggering devastating tsunamis. Others suggest earthquakes or sudden tectonic shifts that drag the city under. Whatever the theory, one truth remains: Atlantis did not fall to war, but to nature, sudden, violent, and unforgiving. A proud empire was swept away without warning, serving as a chilling reminder that nothing stands against the raw power of the earth. One of the most popular and extensively studied theories suggests that the legend of Atlantis is actually a faded memory of the Santorini-Theia volcanic disaster in the Iron Sea. Around 1600 BCE, the eruption there was one of the largest in recorded history, triggering massive tsunamis that swept across the Mediterranean and contributed to the collapse of the Minoan civilization on the island of Crete. The stratified ruins of Santorini, featuring concentric architecture, canals, and evidence of advanced urban planning, have led many researchers to believe that this could be the real-life version of Atlantis that Plato heard about through generations of oral tradition. However, not everyone agrees. Some researchers argue that Atlantis lies beneath the Atlantic Ocean near the Azores Islands, a region known for volcanic landscapes and submerged continental shelves. Others believe the city might be buried under Antarctic ice or submerged in still unexplored waters off the coasts of the Americas. The absence of definitive archaeological evidence to this day only deepens the allure and mystery surrounding Atlantis. The very notion that a thriving civilization could vanish without a trace is both terrifying and strangely alluring. It forces us to confront unsettling questions. How much of history is lost to time? Are we ourselves immune to such fates? Or does Atlantis serve as a cautionary tale for our own ambitions? The suddenness of its destruction reminds us of the awesome and unpredictable power of nature, a power capable of overturning the mightiest empires in moments. Earthquakes, floods, and volcanic eruptions have all reshaped human history countless times, and Atlantis may be the ultimate allegory of these forces in action. Furthermore, the symbolic weight of Atlantis's collapse goes beyond physical disaster. It reflects a deeper truth about civilizations that moral decay, hubris, and unchecked expansion can lead to their undoing. In this way, Plato's tale transcends its mythical shell to offer a timeless lesson. Atlantis, whether real or not, becomes a mirror through which we examine ourselves. How many empires have risen with dreams of eternity only to fall victim to their own excesses? The fascination with Atlantis has permeated every corner of modern culture. From literature and film to video games and conspiracy theories, it's been portrayed as a futuristic city powered by alien technology, as a utopia of peace and harmony, and as a dark secret hidden by global elites. These interpretations, while fantastical, highlight our deep yearning for mystery, for lost truths, and for connections to a forgotten past that might explain who we really are. Some see Atlantis not as a literal place, but as a psychological archetype, a symbol of perfection lost, of knowledge buried, and of the fragile balance between man and nature. The idea that beneath the ocean lies a once great civilization speaks to our fear of erasure and our desire for permanence. In a world of rising seas and environmental instability, the Atlantis myth feels more relevant than ever. Could we too become a lost chapter submerged and speculated upon by future generations? Archaeologists, historians, and geologists continue to search, hoping to uncover evidence of a sunken city that could match Plato's description. Despite the lack of concrete proof, each new discovery of submerged ruins from the coast of India to the Caribbean rekindles hope that Atlantis may have existed in some form. Still, perhaps the true power of Atlantis lies not in its physical remains, but in the questions it forces us to ask about human history, resilience, and humility. Ultimately, Atlantis remains an enduring enigma, a city that may never have existed and yet lives in the collective memory of humanity as if it always had. Its rise and sudden collapse serve as a parable of pride and punishment, brilliance and blindness. Whether buried beneath waves or rooted in allegory, Atlantis continues to whisper to us from the depths, reminding us that no civilization, no matter how great, is ever truly invincible. What about you? What do you think about the mystery of Atlantis? Was it merely a legend invented by Plato? Or could there truly have been an advanced civilization that sank beneath the waves? Do you lean toward the Santorini theory, the Azores, or perhaps another location that remains undiscovered? Share your thoughts in the comments. Who knows, maybe you'll add a new piece to this 2,000-year-old puzzle. They mastered the sea long before the Greeks. They built palaces with running water while much of Europe was still in the Stone Age. They painted vibrant frescoes of dancing priestesses and bull lepers in a world seemingly untouched by war. For over 1,000 years, the Minoans of Crete thrived as one of the most advanced and peaceful civilizations of the ancient world. But then, without warning, they vanished. No final battle, no conquering army, only silence and ruins buried beneath ash and salt. What happened to this brilliant society? Why did they disappear so suddenly from history? Many believe the answer lies beneath the waves of the Iron Sea, triggered by one of the most powerful volcanic eruptions Earth has ever seen. Via a blast so cataclysmic it may have shattered their cities, drowned their coasts, and echoed through the myths of Atlantis. This is not just the story of a civilization. It's the story of how nature can erase even the greatest achievements of humankind in a single unforgettable moment. The Minoans emerged around 3000 BCE during the early Bronze Age on the island of Crete, strategically located at the crossroads of Africa, Asia, and Europe. This prime position allowed them to become one of the earliest maritime powers in human history. They established bustling trade routes across the Mediterranean, exchanging goods, ideas, and technology with Egypt, Mesopotamia, and the Iron World. Their capital, Nos, was a marvel of urban planning and engineering. Massive palace complexes dotted the island Noos, Fistos, Malia, Zakros, each a center of political, religious, and economic life. These structures weren't just grand. They were intricate, featuring hundreds of rooms, elaborate frescoes, underground storerooms, plumbing systems, and even multi-story staircases. The palaces had no fortifications, a testament to the relative peace and security they enjoyed for centuries. Unlike other contemporary civilizations, where war and conquest were glorified, the Manawans seemed to celebrate life. Their fresco depicted athletic young men and women in vibrant colors leaping over bulls in ceremonial games, dancing in festivals, and engaging in religious rites. Nature was a central theme. Dolphins, birds, flowers, and marine life adorned their walls. Religion played a vital role. The Manawans worshipped a variety of deities, with many scholars believing a mother goddess or snake goddess held a central place in their pantheon. Female figures dominate their art, suggesting a matriarchal or at least gender-balanced society. Priestesses appear frequently in rituals, implying a significant role for women in spiritual and possibly political life. The Manawans developed writing systems to manage their complex economy and administration. The earliest of these hieroglyphs evolved into the more sophisticated linear A script. Unfortunately, linear A remains undeciphered to this day. As a result, much of what we know about Minoan life comes not from their own words, but from the material evidence they left behind. This linguistic mystery has become one of the greatest barriers to fully understanding Minoan society. Without deciphering their script, we can't read their laws, myths, or literature. The Minoans remain, in a sense, silent to us, watching from history's shadows. Then around 1450 BCE, everything changed. The great palaces were abandoned or destroyed. Minoan trade ceased. Their influence faded. What could bring down such an advanced civilization? One prevailing theory centers on a cataclysmic natural disaster, the eruption of the volcano on the island of Thera, modern-day Santorini, located about 110 kilometers north of Crete. This eruption is believed to have been one of the largest in recorded history, possibly 4 to 5 times more powerful than Krakatoa in 1883. The explosion ejected millions of tons of ash into the atmosphere, darkening skies and disrupting climate patterns across the eastern Mediterranean. But the real devastation may have come in the form of gigantic tsunamis, possibly over 10 m high, that slammed into the northern shores of sea. Settlements along the coast were obliterated. Ports vanished. Fields were flooded with salt water, rendering agriculture unsustainable. While the palaces of central Crete may have escaped the waves directly, the societal shock, economic collapse, and environmental damage that followed were likely fatal blows. Following the eruption, the archaeological record shows a dramatic shift. Many of the major Minoan sites were either destroyed or never rebuilt. The Manawans, once dominant, became shadows on their own island. Within a few decades, the Mycenaeans, Greek-speaking warriors from the mainland, took control of Crete. They repurposed Minoan palaces and adopted elements of their culture, but the unique Minoan identity was lost. The disappearance was not necessarily immediate, but it was irreversible. The final Minoan strongholds lingered for a century or so before vanishing completely from history. Unlike other empires that fell in battle or faded slowly through decline, the Minoans seem to have been struck down by nature itself. Their legacy buried beneath layers of ash, rubble, and salt. The dramatic nature of the Thera eruption and the destruction it wrought has led some scholars and writers to draw parallels with the legend of Atlantis as told by Plato. In his dialogues, Plato describes a great and advanced island civilization that was destroyed in a single day and night of misfortune swallowed by the sea. Though there is no conclusive evidence linking Atlantis to the Manawans, the similarities are compelling: an island people with incredible architecture, a peaceful way of life, and sudden destruction by natural catastrophe. Whether fact or coincidence, the Minoans have become central to one of history's most enduring myths. Despite over a century of excavation and research, many questions remain. Was the Thera eruption solely responsible for their collapse? Or were there other factors at play, such as internal social unrest, invasion, or climate change? Could the Manawans have recovered if not for the wave of Mycenaean conquest that followed? And most tantalizing of all, what would their own voices have told us? Without a translation of linear, we may never know how they viewed their gods, their world, or their fate. Their story remains incomplete, a grand civilization, silenced not only by the sea, but by the passage of time. Yet the Minoans are not entirely lost. Their art continues to inspire. Their architecture influenced the classical Greek world. Their maritime spirit lives on in the cultures of the Aegean. Modern archaeologists, linguists, and historians continue the quest to understand them piece by piece. And in every wave that laps the shores of Crete, in every fragment of fresco recovered from the ruins, in every symbol etched into ancient clay tablets, the Minoans whisper their secrets, waiting to be heard once more. What do you think really happened to the Manawans? Was it truly the wrath of nature, an unstoppable force that erased a peaceful civilization overnight? Or is there still a missing piece to this ancient puzzle? Something we've yet to uncover beneath the ruins of Crete or the ashes of Thera? Let us know what theory you believe in the most. And if you had the chance to send one question back in time to the Manawans, what would you ask them? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. We're reading every single one. History isn't just about the past. It's a conversation we carry into the future. High above the scorching deserts and shadowed canyons of the American Southwest, the remnants of a lost world cling to the cliffs like ghosts. Vast stone dwellings carved into sheer rock faces, roads that lead nowhere, petroglyphs that speak in forgotten tongues. These are the silent echoes of the ancestral Puebloans, a civilization that flourished in isolation, mastered the harshest of landscapes, and then, without warning, disappeared. Once called the Anasazi, their true name remains a mystery, as do many chapters of their story. Who are these master builders? How did they thrive where others would perish? And why did they abandon their great cities, leaving behind only stone and speculation? Their story is not just one of survival. It's a puzzle of human ingenuity, cosmic alignment, and a collapse that still defies explanation. Around 2,000 years ago, the ancestral Puebloans gradually emerged from early hunter-gatherer groups in what is now known as the Four Corners region, where Utah, Arizona, Colorado, and New Mexico meet. Over time, especially by the 10th and 11th centuries, they reached an exceptional level of architectural and social development. Large villages were built with hundreds of interconnected rooms, such as Pueblo Bonito and Cho Canyon, a structure that could rise up to 5 stories and once housed hundreds of people. But perhaps most inspiring were the cliffside dwellings like Cliff Palace in Mesa Verde, perched precariously along sheer rock ledges and accessible only by wooden ladders and handholds carved into the stone. These homes were not merely places of residence. They were social centers with plazas, granaries, watchtowers, and, especially kveras, circular underground chambers used for spiritual ceremonies. The fact that these structures were aligned with solar and lunar cycles reveals their deep knowledge of astronomy, engineering, and community organization, far beyond what one might expect from a prehistoric society living in the desert. Surviving in the desert was no accident. The ancestral Puebloans developed ingenious agricultural techniques, including dry farming, water harvesting, and check dams to trap precious rainfall. They grew corn beans, and squash in harsh alkaline soils, and cultivated cotton and sunflowers for clothing and oil. Their ability to thrive in such an environment showed both innovation and resilience. They also constructed an expansive road system with carefully straightened paths stretching dozens of miles across the desert floor, likely for trade pilgrimage and ceremonial purposes. These roads connected outlying villages to major centers like Cho Canyon, suggesting a high degree of coordination across the region. Art was more than decoration. It was a spiritual language. Across the Southwest, petroglyphs and pictographs cover canyon walls depicting animal spirals, celestial symbols, and human figures. These images, still not fully understood, may have represented spiritual beliefs, migration stories, or astronomical knowledge inside. Kia's ceremonial rituals linked the Puebloans to the underworld, sky world, and cycles of nature. The architecture of these sacred chambers often reflected cosmological principles, reinforcing a worldview deeply rooted in nature, time, and the ancestors. Despite their isolated terrain, the ancestral Puebloans were anything but cut off. Archaeologists have uncovered items from across the continent. Macers and copper bells from Mesoamerica, turquoise jewelry, obsidian tools, and coastal seashells, all suggesting long-distance trade and contact with distant cultures. This exchange wasn't just about goods. It was about ideas. Agricultural techniques, architectural styles, and religious symbols flowed along these networks, contributing to the dynamic cultural evolution of the Puebloan world. By the end of the 13th century, something astonishing occurred. Major centers such as Chaco Canyon, Mesa Verde, and Kayenta, once the beating heart of the ancestral Pueblo and civilization, were suddenly abandoned. Cliffs that once echoed with prayers, rituals, and the rhythm of communal life were now engulfed in absolute silence. Solid stone dwellings that had housed countless generations became nothing more than hollow shells of a vanished world, leaving behind a mystery that continues to haunt archaeologists today. What could have caused such a resilient civilization, one that had survived for centuries in a desert environment, to collapse so abruptly? The most widely accepted theory points to a severe drought that struck in the late 1200s. Tree ring analyses from the period reveal a series of extremely dry years, conditions so harsh that agriculture became virtually impossible. As crops failed, food stores dwindled, and water sources dried up. Communities may have faced prolonged famine. Still as dire as the drought was, it cannot fully explain the widespread and simultaneous abandonment across such a vast region. Many researchers also highlight factors like overpopulation, resource exhaustion, and long-building social tensions. A society heavily dependent on agriculture and rapidly expanding may have exceeded its ecological limits. Archaeological evidence points to rising violence, burned dwellings, human remains bearing trauma, suggesting the outbreak of internal conflict or competition for dwindling resources. Some sites even show signs of defensive walls, an unusual feature in earlier periods. Beyond material concerns, scholars also suggest a spiritual and ideological crisis. During such hard times, the religious elite at centers like Cho Canyon may have lost their legitimacy, leading to a breakdown in social cohesion. People may have abandoned old ways in search of new belief systems or migrated following visions, rituals, or ancestral instructions, traditions still preserved in the oral histories of modern native communities. While no single cause can be confirmed with certainty, one truth remains clear. The ancestral Puebloans did not vanish. They migrated and were reborn in today's modern Pueblo communities, such as the Hopi, Zuni, Acoma, and Ta. Their ancestral legends, sacred rituals, architecture, and philosophy of harmony with nature endure in these cultures to this day. These communities serve as a living bridge between the present and an ancient civilization, one that once flourished in the heart of the desert and now lives on in humanity's collective memory. Today, The ruins of the ancestral Pueblones are protected within national parks and UNESCO World Heritage Sites, visited by millions and studied by scholars worldwide. Yet for all the research, their story remains tantalizingly incomplete. Why do they build so high into the cliffs? What do the spirals and symbols carved into stone truly mean? Why did they abandon their greatest cities at the height of their power? The silence of the canyons offers no clear answer. Only wind, dust, and the enduring presence of stone. The mystery of the ancestral Pueblones is not merely one of disappearance, but of resilience. They adapted, endured, and left behind a legacy that still shapes the identity of indigenous peoples in the American Southwest. They remind us that civilizations are not measured only by their rise and fall, but by the echoes they leave in the land and the stories that still live on. What do you think truly caused a resilient civilization like the ancestral Puebloans to abandon everything? Was it drought warfare, a spiritual crisis, or something deeper that we still don't understand? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Who knows? Your perspective might help unlock part of a mystery that has lasted for centuries.